But the thing is, you can't walk around with those outside because they're open backed.
Yeah.
And you'll get mugged. But they don't work. You have to be in a quiet, enclosed environment, don't you? Because they're not sealed. My name is Barny Barnicott. I'm here at Bluebell Hill Studios. I set this place up about 18 years ago. First of all, it was just a mix room, just for me. And then over the years, we built a live room, and then we sort of linked it into the house. And then eventually we turned it residential. So now we're a fully residential studio. We've got 8 bedrooms, and we're just doing a games room. We've got riding school that we rent out to the stables, a cafe on site. So it's just turned into this sort of wonderful place for bands to come. You know, it was never the idea. It was meant to be just for me, for mixing. But yeah, we've been lucky. We've got a lovely place, and it's become really popular now. Renting out externally to bands and artists, and we've had just countless wonderful people through over the years. But still, most of the time, it's just me mixing. So I started when I was about 20. I moved away from home. I grew up around here in Kent, and then I moved to London, and I got a job as a runner in Orinoco Studios. And I was there for about 7 years, and it was a brilliant studio. We had all sorts of wonderful artists through, things like Oasis, Chemical Brothers, and all that kind of back end of the 90s Britpop stuff. And as an assistant, it was amazing, because it wasn't too much of a commercial type studio. It was an independent, but they had, great desks. We had a Neve VR, which I learnt on. That was like really what I learned in the VR. And then later on, I started to work with SSLs when I went freelance. And I met Jim Abbiss about 7 years after that, so it must have been my sort of late 20s, and then we worked together solidly for probably another sort of 7 or 8 years, me recording, engineering, and then mixing his records. And then the last record before I set this up, we did the first Arctic Monkeys record, which did really well, obviously, and then that's when I sort of started to set up this place, and I've been here ever since, mixing away. So I tend to mix probably three weeks in the month, and then we tend to let it out probably 1 or 2 weeks in a month. And it's been wonderful, we're really lucky, and it's just like a sort of naturally grown the studio into what it is. It was never a plan of mine, or it was never a great concept. It was just first of all just a place to work, and the control room here is just the garage. So I converted the garage, and we got the desk and most of the equipment from Eden Studios, who closed down in Chiswick, where I used to work a lot. And then we just developed it over the last 18 years, and it sort of turned into this sort of wonderful residential place. We've now got Atmos. We mixed Dolby Atmos in the room next door, and we've started doing lots of writing retreats, and we've got all sorts of stuff going on now. So yeah. Well, I don't think I have a sound, because I think the sound comes from the artist. It's there on tape. It comes from them, it comes from their producer and their engineers, where they recorded it, how they recorded it. So my job is very much to balance up and mix what they give me. And every single job you get through is totally different. So I can't see how anyone can apply the same techniques across various artists. It just doesn't work. Every sound is different, and the way you approach it is different. I have a kind of basic starting point, which is just really balancing up in the box to get it to sound like the reference mix, and at that point then I will decide whether it stays in the box, or I put it on the board, or I put stems on the board, or there's so many different variables that I really can't imagine how I could turn someone's song into my mix. It just doesn't make sense to me. I know there's loads of really good successful mixers, far more successful than me, that sort of have this sound, but all the mixers I've always loved and admired and producers are people that just work on such a broad spectrum of stuff that they feel no need to put a mark on their sound, and I couldn't imagine how you would even do that. So I try and remain as invisible as possible, and I try and get as much information from the artist as I can, and I work on mixes quite slowly, building them up, and I just try and sort of always in touch with the artist to make sure I'm going down the right route. So I get lots of reference tracks, trying to understand what they're into, what they kind of want out of the mix, and what's reasonable. But I really don't try and veer too far away from what's been put on tape for me. And it just starts with the balance. And once the balance is good, then I can just start to sort of bring stuff forward and open it out and make it deeper and wider. But it's really important to retain everything that they've done in the production process. And I know from experience, when I've made mistakes and tried to do something that I thought was great, I've done it and I thought it was amazing, and they've sent it back and just said, well, it sounds great, but it's not what we wanted, it's not what we recorded. So I think it's really important to listen to what artists want, and what they want is what they put on tape most of the time. Well, the console came from Eden Studios. I used to work there a lot before I built this place, and as I was building the structure and the acoustics and everything, that luckily for me was closing down. They were retiring, the guys that owned it, and so I bought basically my favourite console. There's something quite unique about this console, and I bought a lot of that studio with speakers and the Pro Tools rig at that time. Well, I'd start off in the box. I'd always start off just balancing up and arranging all the files and making it simple. It's very different. It depends on the artist and the content of what they're doing. So, for instance, a lot of electronic dance sort of music or electronic generated music, the artist would tend to work a lot on their own, and when you get the product to mix, they're kind of like quite happy with it, and to sort of deconstruct that and then pull it up on the board it's a bit like a house of cards. It all kind of falls apart, and it's kind of built on the balance that they've made. And so because the desk colours a sound so much, and deconstructing the mix as in the balance, it just doesn't work. So a lot of time, if that's the brief, then I'll just stay in the box, and I'll just almost treat it like a sort of you're pre-mastering a master. So you're just taking everything and you're just elevating it a bit, but you're keeping all their levels, and actually just the whole feel of what they've done. You don't want to change it. But when it's more of a band type thing, usually the monitor mixes are quite rough and quite rough and ready. They're not meant to be polished. So that's the point where I'd probably put it on the board, because the desk is just, it colours the sound really nicely, and it's much easier to kind of hold sounds together and build a sound from the desk. Whereas if you're mixing the box, it's harder to do that, and it's harder to kind of gel stuff together. And quite often I want to kind of blur sounds, blur stuff together, and make it sound like a record really. And in the box I struggle with that. Acoustic recordings I put on the desk because there's something about it that gels it together, and the compressors work, and summing it just is quicker for me as well. So it's more like electronic stuff that ends up staying in the box. I think everything that you listen to when you grow up influences you. I was really into Neil Young, The Cure, Prince, Waterboys. I mean, loads of stuff. But so I think everything that you've grown up with naturally just influences you, and so you tend to gravitate towards working on music like that because I think you're better at it. I don't really work on much pop music or sort of dance music, because it's just nothing I've been into really, and there'll be people better at it than me. So I think when you're between, like, I don't know, 14 and 20, you kind of shape the music that you like is formed. And I like everything. And my when I get sent a mix and ask if I want to mix it, my only criteria is, do I like it? It's got nothing to do with the genre. But I naturally get sent things that are along the lines of stuff that I've mixed, and then the stuff that I've mixed is along the lines of the stuff that I like. So it's sort of, it all kind of like ends up the same thing really. If I'm mixing, I'll start off. I mean, I've got the Quest Eds and the Yamahas. I'd start on either of those, and I'll start off just mixing very, very quietly, and just getting a balance. And that's always important. I'm not listening to sort of frequencies or trying to do anything clever. I'm just trying to balance it up, just so it all works. So I've got everything kind of ready. I don't mix like just starting with the drums, or then I do the bass. I sort of just do everything at once, and I slowly dip in and out of different sounds, and then sort of change them like that. So I pretty much keep it quiet the whole time, no matter which ones I'm on. I'm usually on the Quest Eds, and I just like them because they're a bit more open, and I'll just stick on them, and it's just at the end of the mix when my ears start to get tired, then I start to turn up a bit, and you just feel how it sounds, and then I can open stuff out a little bit. I can work on the bit of bass, or sort of the actual sort of sonics of it, or the depth and that kind of thing. But that's really a secondary. The first thing is balancing it up right, and that's the hard work for me. Things like making the vocal, especially just sitting at the right place. So there's a lot of like internal rides, or a lot of clip gain automation and stuff to make your compressors work, just so you can listen to the whole song from start to the end without having to do any processing, just so the balance works. And then once you've got that, then I feel like I'm ready to go in and start opening it up and doing a few more sort of creative things. But I can't work with just looking at individual sounds in solo. I rarely solo anything. And quite often if you do solo something, it might sound awful, but in the mix it just works. So I can't see the point of EQing a bass drum in solo, or EQing a snare in solo. It has no relevance to me. So I get the whole mix done in terms of its balance, and then I just work on it, and like I say, I rarely solo anything. And that's the main, that's the hard work of the mix, I think. And then the other bits is kind of easier. You just feel like you want this to open up, I want this to do this, and you can just go in and do it. But if you haven't got that balance, and you haven't got all the elements in at the same time, you don't understand the relationship that each of those particular tracks or sounds have in regards to everything else. So it makes no sense. So for instance, I would always, when I mix, I always leave my bass out. Like I would put the bass in at the very end. The reason being that it takes up so much room and so much space that I can't hear a lot of the other stuff that's going on down in that sort of frequency range, and it sort of clouds the whole thing. So and I think that's quite a good sort of tip really, just to put the bass in at the end, and then you can work out where the bass sits. Is it under your kick, or is it on top of your kick, or that kind of thing. So yeah, I think really it's just balancing, and so I use both speakers. I try not to flip them too much because your ears have to adjust. I tend to probably spend most of it on the Quest Eds, and then I'll just flip to the Yamahas, and finish the mix off then. And when I got my mix nearly done, I think it sounds good, then it'd be time for an overnight, and I'd just do 2 more days worth of reviews and tweaks when I listen to it in the car and at home. And I always used to have a quick headphone check. I've never been that keen on headphones, really. I'd just do a quick check for panning and little things I can't work out, because the headphones I've always had before, even if they've been open back headphones, I've always felt a bit sort of claustrophobic with them, and I always felt it was a bit alien, an alien environment. And although lots of people I know listen on headphones, I've always felt that it doesn't sort of translate to the wider world, whether you're listening in the car on little, tiny little speakers, or Bluetooth speakers, or big speakers. I always think that listening to it on speakers works better for me, and I don't always just sit here like this staring at it. I tend to walk around, and I walk around the live room, and I go in the kitchen, I just have it playing, and I can hear the balance better. I don't get sucked in by the detail, you know, I just want to hear the whole thing. And so previously, when I used to use headphones, I didn't like it because I got sort of distracted by the detail, which I don't really want to do. But recently, since getting these Meze headphones, they're so open. It's almost like you're not wearing headphones. It's like having an extra set of speakers that you can rely on. And so when you hear it, I can hear all the detail, but I'm not distracted by it. It doesn't sound alien to me. It sounds like listening to a really good set of speakers, another set of monitors. And so that's why I've now started to use headphones more than I've ever used, because I can live them on for a while. I don't feel like I'm claustrophobic. I don't feel it's alien. It's just another really good reference point that's sort of become an invaluable part of my mixing. So I won't mix on them, but I will always put them on at the end, and I'll live with them for quite a few passes, and I can pick out little details that I would never have picked out on before, and that's been really useful to me because I've never mixed in headphones before in my life. They would just be a quick check, but these I can actually do stuff on. I mean, they just don't sound like headphones; they sound like speakers. So yeah, they've been really valuable, and also valuable for Atmos. So we do a lot of Dolby Atmos mixing, and a lot of that is when you're moving stuff around the room. It's about when you move different sounds to different speakers, the level changes, and you can't hear it in the room. So we use those now nearly all the time when we're mixing Atmos. We just live on them, and we're just making sure that when we move stuff around, panning wise, different speakers, that the level stays the same. So it correlates back to everyone else's headphones, and they've been invaluable for that. I mean, they're amazing. Well, the difference is the openness. Even though a lot of other good studio headphones they're open, they're not enclosed. These feel just like you're not wearing headphones. They just feel like there's an air around you. I don't feel, like I say, sort of claustrophobic or enclosed. It literally feels like having another amazing set of monitors. And I've always been happy with these monitors. I've had them forever, and even before I had this place 18 years ago, I would use them and take them around to all the different studios I went to. And like everyone, I used to find it really confusing going to different studios every week and understanding how their monitors sound. Some of them sound sort of up front, some of them sound distant. I don't have that problem anymore because I'm just here, and I rarely mix anywhere else anymore. So I've never really wanted another set of speakers because I know them so well. So I've never looked into it. And but having these has really made me just listen to music in a different way. Just be able to hear different things. But I think the main thing is that they're realistic. Like they actually transcend the real world. Most headphones I don't think do. For me, I can't understand how I would rebalance or re-EQ or change something. But with these, they just feel just so open and airy, and it's just like a different experience for me. They're usable, I guess. They're musical, they're realistic, and they make sense to a mix. They're not just like a nice pair of headphones that you're walking around and listening to them on. They're designed for mixers, and they do that. It's amazing, really. Yeah. I think for anything like your headphones, like the more enclosed ones, they would get a lot more use with musicians using them, and so they would be far more heavily used. And so that's really important that you can service them and just buy the parts and put them together yourself. I think with these, they're just for me. I don't think they're ever going to be battered or used. I wouldn't give them to anyone else. I wouldn't give them to clients. The fact that you can service them, and we have changed the covers there. They gave us like a few options, which is great. And if anything did go wrong with them, I know I can service them really quickly. But I don't think anything's going wrong with them. They're brilliantly made, and I just use them just for me, just for mixing. I think they'll probably last forever. So I've never considered the serviceability. But the more enclosed ones, like you've got the ones that we use for the musicians in the live room, they will always go because people will always have it too loud. Because our musicians have the bands have their own mixers, and they have their own foldback, and they're different. They're made differently because they need to be like hardy. They need to last forever, but and go through a bit of go through the mill a bit. But these, I listen to it very quietly in a very peaceful environment, and they'll last the rest of my life. I never need to fix them. Yeah, I mean they're insanely comfortable. Like I said, the thing I like about them is it doesn't feel like you're wearing headphones. I mean, they're amazingly light, and they just sort of you can feel them on your head, but they don't compress your head, and because they're so open, you can forget you're wearing them. So I just don't even notice I've got them on. Whereas before, that's why I've never mixed with headphones at all, because I can only stand it for a bit. And then the other thing is, once I take them off, it takes me ages for my ears to adjust back to speakers because they've been enclosed like that. But with these, I can just put them on and off, and my ears just adjust straight away. So I don't even consider it anymore. I just put them on every now and again. I can mix for long periods with them if I want to, but I don't. They're more for reference at the end of a mix. But I would suggest if someone was working somewhere where they needed to mix on headphones, there's literally no other choice. Like if I had to mix on headphones, I could mix on them. I could never mix on any other headphones I've ever heard. But so if someone is I don't know, in an environment like if you're starting out, you're making records in your bedroom or something, and you can't have the noise up, like I think that's the only option, because I can mix on them forever if I had to. But I don't. No. But they're brilliant. I mean, they are brilliant. So we just started this course called the Music Production Retreat, and it's me, Jim Abbiss and Chris James. Jim, as I said before, is an amazing producer I've worked with for most of my professional life, and we've been good friends for over sort of 20 years now. And and we worked with Chris. We made his first record a long time ago, and we've always been in touch and friends. And Chris came up with this idea of running a music retreat here, which is basically me, Jim, and Chris, and Tom, our house engineer. And we're getting people. We've got like usually 8 people per retreat, and the idea is that we all just come in and we treat it like a real session. So people bring in their own tunes, whether their stage are at, whether it's just lyrics or a sketch of a tune, and we work on everyone's tune together. And we've done one so far, and it's been amazing. It was really good fun. And so we try to treat it like there's lots of courses you can go on. With sort of modules and lectures, and we're just doing it, we think, a very unique way, where we're not doing that. We're obviously everything that everyone's interested in. We'll teach you, we show you. If you're more interested in mixing, we go for everything you need to know. Same with programming or writing. We've all got our different areas of expertise. But yeah, so we just set it up with the idea that it wouldn't be lectures or modules. It would be like a real session, like everyone's just in and doing it together. And so Meze have given us 3 different sets of headphones. Yeah, we've all got different models of headphones for different uses, and they've all been brilliant. Yeah.